Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez both look to bounce back and work their way towards a title at 145 pounds. Stay tuned to hear my official prediction for Ortega versus Rodriguez 2 at UFC Mexico City. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. All right, guys, so an extremely exciting matchup in the co-main event in Mexico City this weekend. We have Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega. Now, these two have fought before in, I believe it was the Long Island card a couple years ago, where Yair Rodriguez won, and it was a little bit weird with the injury to Brian Ortega, but Yair was winning that fight anyway. This is a big fight considering that both of these guys are right up at the top of the division. We could see the winner fighting for a title in the near future, especially with Max Holloway up at 55 pounds for the time being. I think that Yair or Brian Ortega could see a title in their next fight if they win. Featherweight division has had a lot of guys that have fought each other, a lot of people that have lost to Max Holloway like both of these guys have, and a lot of guys that have lost to Volkanovski. The UFC needs challengers at 145 pounds. For some reason, they want Brian Ortega up at the top of the division. Even if he's had like one win in 4 years, he's still hanging on to that like 3 or 4 seed in the division, which is pretty confusing to most fans given his inactivity. I mean, most fighters that have this type of inactivity will get removed from the rankings. The only ones that I can think of recently that haven't gotten removed from the rankings due to inactivity is Michael Chandler. And it's not because he's hurt, it's just because he's waiting for this Conor fight to actually happen. But he hasn't fought for almost 2 years, and he's still hanging on to his spot. But for the most part, you've seen people get removed from the rankings for inactivity. This happened to Gregor Gillespie when he didn't fight for over a year. And you saw them take Francis Ngannou out of the rankings very quickly after he left the company, but that was for a different reason. Now, this matchup is really entertaining because you have the jiu-jitsu ace in Brian Ortega up against the exciting striker in Yair Rodriguez. And this fight gets even more intriguing because Yair Rodriguez is no slouch on the ground, even though he's a striker. And Brian Ortega has improved his striking greatly, even though he's a jiu-jitsu guy. I think that this fight is going to go very similar to the first one. And I think that Brian Ortega will struggle on the feet to close the distance and make something happen on the ground where he would be comfortable. But based on what I saw in the first fight and Yair Rodriguez being so skilled on the feet compared to Brian Ortega, my official prediction for this fight is that Yair Rodriguez will beat Brian Ortega and move on to a title fight after this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think's going to win, Brian Ortega or Yair Rodriguez? If you like this video and you want more content just like this, click that subscribe button down below. If you want more content from me, go check out my weekly comedy podcast, the Hissyfit podcast, and go check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World. Go watch this suggested video, and I'll see you next time.